I thought I was ready. I had replayed every possible scenario in my mind, imagined every conversation, every smile, every moment where something could go wrong. I believed that if I prepared enough, nothing would surprise me. I thought I understood my emotions, my fears, my patterns. But what I didn't know was that a resource existed that could help me rebuild my life. You will find it in the description and comments. At that moment, I wasn't looking for advice. I was trying to protect myself from rejection. The day of the first date arrived quietly, but my mind was loud. My thoughts raced with questions I didn't know how to silence. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm not interesting enough? What if they see through me? I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting details that suddenly felt monumental. Not because they mattered, but because I believed they did. I wasn't preparing to meet someone. I was preparing to be evaluated. From the moment I saw them, I felt the familiar tension in my chest, a mixture of excitement and fear. They smiled, warm and genuine, and for a second, I thought, this could be something real. But instead of allowing myself to be present, I retreated into performance. I tried to be charming, intelligent, impressive. I spoke more than I listened. I filled silence with words that didn't come from my heart. I confused confidence with control. The conflict wasn't visible on the surface. The conversation flowed. We laughed. On the outside, it looked like a successful first date. But inside, I was disconnected. I wasn't experiencing the moment, I was managing it. I was so focused on not making mistakes that I forgot to make a connection. And the more I tried to appear right, the further I moved from being real. At one point, they asked a simple question. What are you really looking for? I hesitated. Not because I didn't know, but because the truth felt vulnerable. I answered with something safe, something polished, something that wouldn't expose how deeply I wanted to be understood. And in that moment, I felt it, a subtle emotional distance, not rejection, not disinterest, just a quiet shift, as if the space between us had widened without either of us moving. That was my breaking point, sitting across from someone I genuinely liked, realizing that I was slowly sabotaging the very connection I wanted to protect. I asked myself, why am I hiding when all I want is to be seen? And the answer was painful, because I was afraid that who I truly was might not be enough. The rest of the date passed gently, but something inside me had changed. When we said goodbye, there was kindness in their eyes, but also uncertainty. I walked away replaying every moment, every word, every silence. I didn't blame them. I blamed the fear that had taken control of me, the fear of not being chosen, the fear of not being worthy, the fear that has quietly destroyed more connections than any mistake ever could. That night, I sat alone with the realization I had been avoiding. First dates don't fail because of awkward moments. They fail because we abandon ourselves. We enter the experience not to connect, but to be approved. And in doing so, we become distant from our own truth. I began to reflect on how many times I had done this before, how often I had turned authenticity into strategy, how many times I had tried to be the right version of myself instead of simply being present. I saw how my anxiety had shaped my interactions, how I sought control instead of connection, perfection instead of presence. The rebuilding didn't start with dating advice. It started with self-awareness. I asked myself what I truly wanted from connection, not attention, not validation, but emotional resonance. To be seen as I am, not as I perform. And that meant doing something terrifying, showing up without armor, allowing pauses, speaking honestly, letting go of the need to impress. Understanding that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the foundation of intimacy. The next time I went on a date, I made a conscious choice. I didn't try to control the outcome. I focused on listening, on being curious instead of impressive, on expressing what I actually felt instead of what I thought would be attractive. And something remarkable happened. The conversation slowed. The tension softened. There was no performance, only presence. I wasn't trying to be chosen, I was simply being. I learned that the first date is not an audition. It is an encounter between two inner worlds. And when we treat it like a test, we lose the very thing that creates connection, emotional honesty. We forget that attraction is not built on flawless behavior, but on psychological safety, on the subtle feeling of being accepted as we are. If you've ever walked away from a date feeling like you almost had something but somehow lost it, you were not broken. You were just protecting yourself from vulnerability. And that protection, though understandable, often becomes the barrier between loneliness and intimacy. At the end of my journey, he discovered guidance in a resource that helped him face anxiety and rebuild his life. You can access it too. The link is in the description and comments. Because connection does not begin when someone chooses you. It begins when you stop hiding from yourself. True freedom begins in the mind and only then appears in life. If this story resonated with you, like the video and subscribe to Love and Mind for more reflections on relationships, emotional psychology, and self-worth.